Being one of the industry leaders in animation, Disney does have an interesting history with merging animation with live action. From Song of the South to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, it's an interesting spectrum. One film that gets lobbed up there in the history of this topic is Pete's Dragon, a 1977 film that merges animation with live action. When taking in consideration the time the film was released, compared to how the film actually is, it feels odd. This classic Disney family film that takes place in a vintage staple of Americana being released into a climate of cinema where it's very grim and very realistic, very dark, very adult. The 70s were definitely a period of change for America, and especially in regards to cinema. With the Vietnam War just ending, you have films about war, about crime dramas, and heck, even people were starting to talk about pornography professionally. What? Then you have a film like Pete's Dragon that feels like it should have came out like at least 20 years before it did. It's odd. Even though it's a family film, it's still kind of odd to see a film like this with the aesthetics and sort of tone being released in the period that it was. I mean, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory sort of had an adult edge. It was weird. Seen that movie? Heck, did Ralph Bakshi's Wizards come out the same year, and wasn't that supposed to be a family picture? Pete's Dragon is an interesting film in that sort of the climate it was released in is way more interesting than the film itself, because honestly, besides some things in the ending, I was bored throughout the whole thing. Aesthetically, for a 20th century film taking place in a 19th century America, it does remind one of musicals like Hello, Dolly, Singing in the Rain, The Music Man, that sort of deal. Pete's Dragon aesthetically looks like a very old-timey movie. $5 for a dragon. When talking about the film's main attraction, the animation, you can definitely tell that it's dated, but for the time, it's not terrible. A great big chunk of it is Elliot, the dragon of the title. He is well animated, expressive, and very fluid. It was about a decade before Roger Rabbit, and they didn't quite nail the shading, sort of extra detail, interacting with physical objects, that little extra step that Roger Rabbit gave. The shot composition is also set up in order to work around Elliot, because we just didn't have the technology yet. Oops. But Elliot doesn't look bad. It just looks a little bit outdated, and you can definitely tell that there's not a dragon there. He's animated, so. But I bet in 1977, this was mind-blowing stuff. Just imagine watching this and getting your brains blown out by Star Wars, like, yeah, look at those special effects! The pacing in Pete's Dragon really seemed kind of off too. Like, with it being over 2 hours long, it just dragged on, and some scenes didn't necessarily flow well as it could have. It just could have used another rewrite, make it more streamlined, and make it really stronger. Because as a musical, it's decent. I hardly remember any song besides that dragon song, and that's pretty much it. The scenes are well choreographed, and again, it's not unlike something like Hello, Dolly or Singing in the Rain or any other musical put to film of that time period. As for character performances, everyone did a decent job. It was very sort of like, it was stage quality acting, sort of like in that it was an optimistic, very upbeat, like, I have to be clear for a Disney family film. But I think what the film really suffers from is that it doesn't focus on Pete and Elliot too much, because that would just be too expensive in animation. We have like 3 different subplots in this film when it should be about Pete and Elliot, and we hardly get enough of them, I feel. I feel like the film could have been stronger if it was streamlined, take some songs out, make it at a crisp 90 minutes, and have it be about Pete and Elliot while also maybe briefly touching upon these things. Because some of these subplots are really half-baked. Yeah, given what you would probably have, you would get a very basic a kid and his blank story, but that's okay as long as you just work at it, make it really strong, make it something worthwhile, even for a kid's film or a live-action Disney film that hardly anyone remembers. It's just like, I wasn't invested in anything what was going on, and that's not good. Say what you want about Disney doing so many remakes. Why don't they do a remake of this? Oh, hey. It's not like these subplots don't factor in Elliot's existence or any meaningful significance to the plot. It's just that I feel like it could have been more streamlined, really amp up something, just make it more personal and more meaningful. And cut it down to 90 minutes or so, because there's no reason this film should be 2 hours long. Oh, God. Ugh. When looking at Rotten Tomatoes, this film does have a 50% rating in terms of the critic aggregation, and yeah, I can see why. It's a very middle road film. There is some good stuff in it, like the animation. It's not a badly produced film, and it did give some laughs out of me at the end. It's just way too long. There's a huge lack of focus in the film. It feels like Disney had this concept lying around in their studio ever since like the 40s or 50s, and then in the 70s decided to produce it because, hey, it makes money. At the very least, it did get several famous animators' careers off the ground, including one such, Don Bluth. So, hey, yep, he was the animation director on this. Good for him. When looking at Elliot, you can definitely see some Don Bluth-isms in his face. I don't know, it's weird. Just watch The Secret of NIMH and then watch The Rescuers. You'll see differences. Would I recommend Pete's Dragon? As an oddity, and for any diehard Disney fans, I say, sure, it's worth one viewing, I guess, but just to say that you did, but if it doesn't tickle your fancy, it's not going to tickle your fancy, so. I only really recommend it to diehard Disney hards. Live free or Disney hard. Disney hard with a vengeance. Disney hard with a Penelope. No! Aside from Elliot, it just feels like any other family film predating like 1980. E.T. is a good cutoff point. In regard to the remake, at the time of this recording I have not seen it, but I do plan to as it slowly exits theaters in my area, so you'll be getting a review on that very soon. So anywho, what do you guys think of my opinions on Pete's Dragon, version 1977? Feel free to leave a comment or share what you thought about the video or anything, and even my opinions. That helps too. But anywho, I'm Maximum Austin. Keep being confident, and you enjoy your day.